Hi, Joe Cerrone.
And Alan Rosen.
Welcome to CAD-118 in our weekly Zoom classroom meeting. Alrighty, so we're in our D2L course shell, Advanced AutoCAD in our weekly Zoom classroom meeting. We use the same link every week, and then students who attend the Zoom classroom meeting will go through questions and answers. So it's a good idea to attend the Zoom meetings. Although you're not required, you can get some additional assistance. We've released module 4, which is chapter 3, creating meshes. And so we'll look at these mesh basic shapes, sub objects, mesh settings, converting them, refining them, and then some editing commands. And meshes are really kind of an AutoCAD thing. I think Rhino will work with NURBS and things like that, but they're faces, and they're these if we look at the textbook, they started working with meshes about 13 years ago. And what it is it's a free form tool for designing. And so as we work with the meshes, they don't have like set values like you would with a mechanical part where they're saying this is 3 inches by 2 inches. And so they create these shapes, and you can set up your edges so that you can see them. And so as we look at our CAD, we're working on these different assignments. One of them is this chair assignment. And if we were to look at that, and so if we take VS edges, and the way that AutoCAD works, you'll notice that the value is either a 1 or 0, and that's binary, meaning on or off. And so off would be 0. And so if I take VS edges and I turn it off, now you will not see the faces. If we turn it back on, you can see that. And then some other options. And some of these commands, what you want to do is you want to type them in. And so we could go with VS color. And I digress. Let me see what the exact command is. But as we work, I'll come back to that. We have the ability to tweak the meshes. And so as we work with manipulating these meshes, we'll use these sub-object editing gizmos to work with it. And it's different because most of the mechanical stuff has been with creating these shapes and extruding them and then rotating them into place. Whereas on our mesh files, what we're doing is we're kind of grabbing and pressing and pulling these shapes. And so if we look at the video files for the exercises, here's the YouTube one. What we'll do is we'll work through how to work with these different mesh files. And this is just the second semester that we've been working with this textbook. And it's a good textbook. As we go through, it's got the more modern techniques. And so we'll create these mesh files, and then we use these sub-object editing techniques. And so you control click on the faces, and then you'll get these manipulable faces that you can press and pull. Again, free form shapes. And so there is no exact, how do we want to make this? It kind of looks like a beanbag chair to me, but it's a great example of the technology and how we can use that technology, where now we can make these soft freeform shapes, and then we can bring them into our slicer and actually 3D print them, which is really cool because then we can have like a physical prototype that we can look at the color, how we want to use those things. So there's some neat things in the videos for you on that. Back to the course information, and then back to the module 4. So as we work with meshes, we're working with creating these different mesh files. And then we also look at what they call surfaces. And so prior to meshes, we were creating everything with a surface. And the surface commands were things like rule surf and surf tab. And so prior to the meshes created, we were creating surfaces. And so some of the exercises are geared towards creating surfaces, like this one right here, where we have an object. And what you can do is you can toggle between a visual style of conceptual and 2D wireframe to actually see the mesh files. And so here you can see these are ruled surfaces. If you click on them and you look at a quick property, you can see that, well, they used to call them ruled surfaces. Now they call them a mesh, but you can apply these according to the instructions. And they're kind of neat looking. In my opinion, they're somewhat artistic, where if we were going to put this in the backyard and have something that was going to make like a artistic statement, we can do that. And then we can look at that in these different styles, kind of like the X-ray. So as we work through these different CAD drawings, we have different construction techniques that we'll go through and we'll work with to create the meshes. You're to download these practice exercises and then follow the instructions from the textbook. So for example, practice 3.1, we download, and the textbook comes with a CD that includes these files, but we've put them in the D2L. And there's nothing in there other than the workspace that you're going to be working in. And then we switch over to the 3D modeling workspace. And so now that I'm in the 3D modeling workspace, and I'm having some trouble with my Windows layout. It's like putting windows on top of windows that I can't close. But now that I'm in the 3D workspace, we can go to our mesh tab. And so here's the mesh tab. And then here's our mesh primitives. And so we can create, for example, a mesh box. And it creates a box just like a primitive for a solid. And if we look at that in 2D wireframe, well, let's look at it in conceptual. Okay, and then we can turn on the edges. And so we say VS edges, and we can say 1, and we can show that. And we can then manipulate the colors too with VS edge color. And so if you start with the VS and you start going to VS edge, you can go into these different commands, and then we can tweak it. And so for example, color number 1 is red, color number 2 is yellow, color number 3, red, yellow. I think it's blue or green. 3, yellow. 4, excuse me, I lost it. I went into orbit somehow. VS edge color. And the way the colors map is they map to the color command. And so if we type in color, these are the standard colors that AutoCAD came out back when we had pen plotters. And so you'd have a pen plotter with color number 1, and you'd have pen number 1, which was red. Color number 2 was yellow, green. And so we're going back quite a ways for those color commands. But as you can see, you can work on these. And then when you control click on them, you can then manipulate these surface faces. And the book goes and does a great job of talking about being able to smooth things out and create these inorganic or freeform shapes. And so that's the learning objectives for this chapter. As we go through and we work with it, you can download these practice files, and then we'll work on basic mesh shapes, sub-objects, and then creating meshes from 2D, refining them. The projects that are required complete the practice labs 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3. Okay, and then there's a project file that we're going to create for this mesh chair. And so here's the practice files that you can download. And I think we have one extra one with 3.4. I'm not sure why it's not showing up on my screen, but just those 3. And then here's the project file that you can download. And then here's the video instructions for those. And so you can look at the teacher videos, and we'll walk you through the construction techniques for those. As I said, it's a different type of CAD modeling, and it's really interesting in my opinion. This is, like I said, the second semester that we're using this textbook, and so I hope you like the assignments as we go through and we start to work with those. Module 4. Back to the module 4. So the assignment is to create these 3 exercises from the practice labs. You'll download and follow the textbook instructions. Textbook information is right here. You should buy the book. And then you can go through and create these exercise files. If I look at them, it tells you step by step how to follow and create those objects and what to save them as. Alrighty. So as we go through and we continue working on these projects, we're working on module 4. Midterm isn't until November, so we'll drop this in as we start to get closer to the midterm actual time. But Al's got some things set that we'll be talking about next week. Next week, we'll go through the next module, module 5. And then when we get closer to module 6, we'll be at the halfway point. All right. So if we look at our outline of topics, our calendar, module 4 will be due on the 22nd. Module 3 is due on the 15th. And then if we kind of back into some of the exercises we did last week, we worked on these. This would be an architectural model of a table and a mechanical model of this mechanical part. Alrighty, so that's our weekly Zoom classroom information for module 4. Al, is there anything else that we want to cover before I end the Zoom classroom meeting? Alrighty, I'm going to stop the recording and open things up for questions.